Hello, and welcome to Opera Glasses, the official podcast of Opera Canada magazine. I'm your host, Michael Jones, and I'm pleased to be joined today by one of the biggest names in opera in our country, recipient of a Ruby Award from Opera Canada, which I have to say, and a member of the Order of Canada, baritone John Fanning. John has sung in all of the major Canadian houses as well as across the States, including performances at both San Francisco Opera and the Met. He's currently in rehearsals for a new production of Don Pasquale at Calgary Opera. John, welcome to Opera Glasses, and thank you for joining us today.
Well, thank you, Michael. It's great to be here.
Well, it's really wonderful to have you here. I'm pleased to welcome you. As we were just chatting about off the record, I guess, you were one of the singers that was established in quite a young career just as I was leaving school. So you are somebody that I remember back from the earliest parts of your career, and it's really a pleasure to meet you today.
Well, nice to meet you as well.
I wanted to begin because there's a couple of things that I wanted to talk about in the first section of the interview. I wanted to begin by reading the sentence about you in the press release from Calgary Opera, where they say, "Beloved Canadian baritone and recipient of the Order of Canada, John Fanning comes out of retirement to star in his role debut as Don Pasquale." Now, I know that you left your teaching work behind at McGill a number of years ago, and so this is, I suppose, what retirement looks like for an artist in Canada. So what does retirement look like for you?
Well, retirement, yeah, you're exactly right. I was at the University of Montreal, not McGill. But yes, that's what I retired from. The career as singer tends to retire from you, or tends to retire you, and that sort of thing. And I had left my agency and that sort of thing, and so I was happy to just move on, and you know, we do volunteer work, we do stuff like that now. My wife and I have enjoyed retirement a lot, and I look forward to that again in the future.
And are you still based in Montreal?
Nope, I was only based there while I sang.
Okay.
We were based in Dundas, Ontario, next to Hamilton, and I guess 2.5 years ago we moved down to Waterford, Ontario, which is sort of between Brantford and Simcoe. If you know, we're closer now to Lake Erie than Lake Ontario. So yeah, we're down in that area.
That sounds lovely. And what do you do in retirement?
Well, as I say, we volunteer. Part of the reason that I retired from Montreal was also that the grandkids were starting to come. And as the grandkids came, my wife sort of quit coming to Montreal. And and it was a kind of not the ideal situation. It was kind of like my career being on the road. I was on the road even teaching. So, it was nice to get home and to be with family. So we do some babysitting, we do some, driving kids around, things like that. I don't do a whole lot of it, and not nearly as much as my wife, especially this month while I'm out here. But we do. I get to take my grandson Matthew to hockey and things like that. So he's 5, and then Kate takes Maggie to dance in Waterford, and we have a new grandson over here. Who's a lovely boy, and so and he's in Waterford as well. So we're delighted. Yeah.
That sounds really quite wonderful. Now, but you must still be singing because.
Well, I am now. I didn't do a whole lot of it, sort of Christmas Eves and things like that during the years. But I worked right up till COVID, and then like everybody who was out of work also because of that. So that was also a good time to break away. I worked the November of 2019 in Newfoundland. They got the rights to do the Phantom of the Opera. So we did a regional thing out there, and I adore Newfoundland, so I was very, very happy to be there. And the show was really fun 28 years later, going back to that, because I did it for 2 years on the road and then I think 7 months in Toronto. So it was nice to revisit that for sure.
That sounds wonderful. So what was it like then going and not just going back to singing and learning but learning a brand new role at their
Yeah,
stage?
that's kind of a skill, that one acquires over a career, and so it was a little bit different coming back to that. The singing itself, I sang through the role when it was offered, and through parts of the role at least, and things like that to see where it's at. And it's a nice role. It's a little lower sitting than it used to be, my roles, and so that's sort of taken out of the equation. But there's a ton of words and memory, and I thought my memory was still doing all right, so that was okay. And then I sort of went into training this summer with singing, and doing a lot of it, and trying to get back into shape. So
So you've been working through the summer getting back into shape for the singing. Now, did you know Don Pasquale at all? Had you sung Malatesta earlier?
I had sung a couple of things from Malatesta in concerts once or twice apparently, because my score is underlined. Uh, and I had taught a young artist some of Don Pasquale, just going through the role and trying to make it work for him and that sort of thing. So other than that, nope.
Okay, and was it hard, or was it to restart that part of your brain to actually learn to memorize all of that material?
Yeah, yeah, it was a challenge, we'll say, and it still is. For a singer, when you do something a lot, you see the page in your mind, and you think, okay, that's that page. It's up in the right hand corner, and that took a while to come back. And thankfully, it's coming back now much better, and things like that. But also just knowing the opera, and this is a very busy production of this marvelous piece, and a beautiful production. I think it's really going to be a lot of fun. I think the audience will love it. But yeah, thinking ahead to what's the next thing, you know, that has sort of slowed down maybe a little bit over the years, and so trying to get that back up to speed. And
Okay.
the cast is terrific. It's Lucia Cesaroni and John Tessier and Philip Addis. So they've all done it before. So trying to catch up has been
Well,
interesting and
I
fun.
knew that Lucia had done it before. She writes, of course, for Opera Canada
Yes,
magazine quite
absolutely.
regularly, but she's also back fresh on stage with a brand new baby.
Brand new
So,
baby.
who I think is about 4 months at this point, if
Yep,
I
and
recall.
he's out here with her, so she's busy for sure.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
And I also know John, I think, and this would date both of us, so maybe I shouldn't tell this for John's, but John and I sang in the National Youth Choir together, which was many, many years ago. He was there as the tenor, I'm guessing, from Alberta,
Aha, probably. And
and
he's
I was there as the tenor from Ontario. So we sang together many years ago. I'm not going to admit how many.
that's a
Um,
riot. Yeah. Well, it's kind of the same. John and I sang together. I don't know how many either. I think we did. I think it was Gounod. I think it was Romeo and Juliet, maybe that we did. I think in Saskatoon. I mean, it's that far gone back. But I think that's the only other time I ever worked with him, where Lucia and I did Rheingold together. She was one of the marvelous Rhine maidens in Victoria a few years ago, and Phil's been a friend for quite a while, but we've never sung together either. So it's great to get
well,
with these folks. It's a lovely
it
cast.
sounds like a wonderful cast. Now, you said it's a really fun and beautiful production. What can you tell us about this production?
Well, it's very evocative and sort of set in the period of 1950s Italian cinema. So, which I'm not an authority at all. I've seen some of the movies. So, but the sets and the hairstyles, the costumes are fantastic. The sets are great. It's going to be not like Phantom with things flying in and out, but I think it'll be very. It's going to be fun to see how it works on stage for sure.
So if it's a 1950s Italian film set, then do you get to be the dashing older actor as opposed to the doddering old fool that sometimes Don Pasquale is?
Yeah, well, it's excuse me. It's kind of the doddering older actor. It's not really a dodderer, I've got to say, but it's kind of an interesting study. He's wondering about his relevance as the cinema changes, and he's still trying to do things, and maybe whether it's the gestures are too much or too big or old fashioned, and so it's that sort of idea, and it is the generational thing, both with he and his nephew, obviously, and also he and Norina, and he and himself. Can I still be loved at this age, or do I still got it? That sort of thing, and yeah, so it's very interesting. It's lovely how it works together, and how some of those pieces that you hopefully you'll have a lot of empathy for Don Giovanni, Don Pasquale, and because he just is struggling with that and realizes that his life is basically over at some points.
Okay, well, that's good, and don't mistakenly sing Mozart when you're there, because that would. Hey, so you talk about how beautiful the costume is. Have you the show is? Have you had costume fittings? Have you seen?
Yes, I had one last night, and my shoes are killer. They're like three-tone. They're fantastic. Yeah.
So we should warn Calgary Opera to watch out for your shoes, which may.
They're going home. But all the costumes are just great, and the hairstyles, and Lucia looks terrific, and with what they've done, we did some photos and movies and things earlier on, which will be part of the production. I'm still waiting to see how that all works, and so that's interesting. But no, it's every costume I've seen are real slick. It's the suits are beautiful for the guys, and yeah, it's going to be great.
And the set, have you seen anything yet, or other than models and sketch?
Not really. We're still in the hall, the rehearsal hall, for a couple of days, and but it looks very, very interesting for sure.
Wonderful. You talked about the idea of you're looking at Don Pasquale as a person who's wondering if he still has it, if he still is relevant. So does that feel like you at all, as you're going back to work that you haven't done for a number of years?
Yeah, I think So I've gone also, even when I was still singing. Uh, into my 50s or whatever, and all these young artists coming up behind, and not just baritones, and it's like, wow, that's amazing, and that whole thing. That's an interesting thing about aging, for me, is the perspective's terrific. To look back and sort of go, oh, okay, so that's what that meant, or whatever. Uh, the aches and pains, not so much, but to see how things do change, and you thought, okay, that's what that person told me, and that's what that meant, or that's what how I should have behaved and I didn't, or whatever it might be. And yeah, so that's very, very interesting.
That sounds like it will bring something of you to a role that's often just a broad comedic
Yeah,
takedown of the.
I hope so. Yeah.
Good. Well, that sounds really quite wonderful. And so this production opens on at the beginning of February. Is that right?
One, I think, yeah.
February 1st.
Okay.
So go visit calgaryopera.com to get tickets. It sounds like a really wonderful production of Don Pasquale. Are you happy with how you're singing?
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, it's so busy right now that I'm a little bit rough, and we're working till now at 10 at night, and then getting back up in the morning. So, um, yeah, I wish I had about 3 days off to let it all come back. So maybe a little more marking in the next couple of days, that sort of thing. But yeah, we've got a day off coming up, and I'll probably be very quiet and that sort of thing. But in general, no, I was during the year, I was pretty happy with how things were going. So felt confident about the voice.
Well, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
So is there something that's up next for you? Do you have plans at this point?
I
Whether
go
you
home and have a
can share them or
concert.
not.
Pardon me?
Whether you can share them or not.
Yeah, yeah. No, I have a concert just about right after this of songs, love songs for sort of Valentine's Day, and I'm doing that with Ariana Chris, and so that'll be a lot of fun. And then no plans to get back on the stage, and I think you know this would hopefully be a lovely way to sign off.
Or not, because
Yeah.
I always talk about retirement for artists in Canada really meaning that we might take fewer gigs, but we get to pick and choose the ones that sound really fun to us.
Yeah, there's that. And when I say I haven't really sung in that, I've done a couple of sort of small recitals, that sort of thing, and an evening here or there. But in general, pretty quiet.
Well, and you must have somehow kept the breath moving through the instrument to be able to pick it up again as readily as you have.
Yeah, well, yeah. As I say, this year was quite a bit of singing and just trying to get some flexibility back. Still looking for some of that and some of the other things one does. But what's interesting to me with this and in doing this role is that I sang old guys and I sang a lot of comedies over the years, but I sang things like Danilo or in Merry Widow, or Pirate King, and those sorts of things, which still had high notes or whatever, and were different from this. Whereas, and I sang old guys in my 20s. I was a father of 30-year-old tenor when I was 22 or whatever it was, and so that was one thing I wanted to look at, and that was one of the things that made this so interesting, is that now that I am a guy that's in my 70s, if that's not a secret, it's interesting to play a guy that says, for a guy in his 70s,
Wow, I would not have guessed that you were in your 70s, so great compliments to whoever's doing your work.
well, what little kids would say, I'm probably 70 and a half.
Oh, okay, so you're in your 70s, but it's a barely thing
Yeah,
there.
there
So
you go.
where's your recital of love songs?
It's in Ancaster. Yeah,
Mhm.
and it's there's a new theater there which I haven't seen yet, I haven't been in, and they've done that, and so yeah, that'll be February 11th actually. So
Which is an easy commute for people in the GTA
yeah,
area. So
yeah. So
people
there you go.
should check that out and come down to hear
Yeah,
you sing.
thank you for
But
asking.
there's no plans right now, so that we can't tease that audiences in other Canadian cities might hope to get that opportunity to hear you again.
No, I think I've got a feeling this is it. I think my wife has a feeling that this is it. I think she'll be happy for me to get home, hopefully.
She'll be happy to have you take over some of the driving duty again.
Exactly.
Well, it has been a real pleasure to talk with you, John. I am so thrilled to get to meet you. I wish you and the other John and Lucia and Phil all the best with your opening, Toy Toy Toy, and I hope that we will get more opportunities to hear you. I think what I will go with what mature artists have to bring to their craft, to their understanding of roles, is really important. And as long as you are healthy, I think opera companies in Canada should be encouraged to keep pulling you out of retirement.
Well, you're very kind. I appreciate it, and it's been lovely talking to you, Michael. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Once again, it's been Michael Jones for Opera Glasses Podcast. We've been speaking today to John Fanning. We'll be back in probably about 4 to 6 weeks with another interview. The next one up, I believe, is Cheryl Hickman from Opera on the Avalon in Newfoundland. So please, thank you for joining us today, and join us again.